Well, good morning, everybody. I think we'll try to be efficient with everybody's time and get started. Want to thank everybody for taking time to be here this morning and help communicate our plan. Really excited to be here, really excited to unveil our plan for our partners in the legislature to consider and to work and solve the incredible crisis that we have in the state of Nebraska, our property tax crisis. I've got a few remarks, but before I go there, maybe first I want to acknowledge my partner, Lieutenant Governor Joe Kelly. Thank him for stepping up and leading the trade delegation to Indonesia. Extraordinarily important. I'm governor for kids, taxes, agriculture, values, and selling our products all over the state for manufacturing, agriculture, and interaction is really important. And so there's lots of important things going on, and my trusted partner, Joe Kelly's carrying out that delegation, and they're having extraordinary response in Indonesia, and I'm very grateful for that. Pretty confident that when the trade delegation gets back, they're going to wish Joe Kelly was governor. So they're in great hands. I also want to thank Senator Linehan, Chair of the Revenue Committee, and Senator Clemens, Chair of Appropriations Committee, for being here with me today. And then, needless to say, the senators in Revenue Committee, senators that were in our Workforce Committee last summer, and several other senators that I think there were 19 of us that have been working and interacting. This process is just like every other process within government and working in committees and engaging. Before the session's done, I'll at least have had the opportunity to sit down with all 49 at their pleasure and working on that. So I think that's important. Maybe the other for a homekeeping place would be that for anybody watching at home, we've got a copy of the plan that can be found on the governor's website at governor-dot.dot.gov.dot. So that plan is there, and I think really important. And maybe a couple comments that I would like to make. I think that from the time this calling happened to me over 3 years ago, and meeting Nebraskans all across, there's two profound things that were everywhere. Our property tax crisis. How on earth do we solve this? Property tax crisis, running ranchers off their ranch, running people out of their homes. And then I won't stop talking about it. I'm governor because of kids, taxes, agriculture, values. It's time the state quits quitting on kids. It was astonishing to me when I learned that out of 244 school districts, the state of Nebraska provided no funding to 180 of them. Zero funding. Our constitutional obligation is crystal clear. We, the state, are responsible for educating our children. And so those are a couple things that are really important. And I think that the thing that is real important for us to understand is this plan is a net tax decrease plan, and that our tax increase of property taxes are so out of control that you don't even need to own property to be adversely affected. I think that the other thing that's so simple that sometimes we make this so complicated, but it's so simple. Economists all agree, and they don't agree on very much, but they all agree that if you have forms of income tax, sales tax, and property tax, and if you want to stifle the growth of your state, have the highest property tax. $5.3 billion in property taxes. You can see the chart here and see just how much it's gone up. We went from 1984, it took 18 years to get to $1 billion, then it took 8 years to get to $1 billion, then it took 6 years to get to the next $1 billion, then it took 5 years to get to the next $1 billion. In the first 365 days I've been your governor, our property taxes went up $300 million. Folks have said, well, why the session now? Why? Because it's a crisis. If we don't fix it, our property taxes will soon be going up $1 million a day. $1 million a day. I'm committed, and I know everybody in our legislature is as well, because we have no idea. We have no idea how many people want to come here and go to the website and see what our property taxes are, and they hit delete. I just was working with somebody from the Department of Economic Development yesterday, said this person needs to come in, their company that wants to come and do business in Nebraska, only there's just a little glitch just happened in the last 2 weeks. I said, what's the glitch? Well, they started looking around for a site, and they bought property across the river because of property taxes. We have a crisis, and it's affecting every single one of us. It's affecting young and old. It's affecting homeowners. It's affecting renters. It's affecting urban. It's affecting rural. It's affecting business owners, farmers, ranchers, every single one of us in the state. So it's a crisis that has been accelerating at warp speed, and it's time to fix it. I think that we have tremendous, tremendous opportunities. And in this special session, I have great confidence in all of our partners in the unicameral that we will solve the crisis. We will have a solution that will quit quitting on kids, and we'll have a solution where we'll stop spending money, because spending's been a problem, and giving up tons of exemptions in the last 60 years has been a problem, and they have to be addressed, and they have to be addressed now. So with that, I'd like to introduce Senator Linehan to talk about a few of the points of the plan. Thanks, Senator Linehan.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Property taxes are definitely at a crisis level in Nebraska. I have long said that neglecting this problem has the potential to keep people from coming to Nebraska and compels our youth to look to other states to relocate. The plan we are proposing today is a comprehensive approach to reforming our tax system, and reform is critical. You can see how big this problem has been, and it's been growing every year I've been in the legislature. This plan achieves the following key objectives. It will reduce the average property taxpayer's property taxes by 50%. 50%. The state, finally, will fulfill its constitutional obligation and take on more responsibility in funding K-12 education. Local control will be maintained. They will still have school board members who can focus on students and teachers' needs and learning outcomes, instead of being in the rotunda every year while we're in session begging for money. They can take care of students and teachers. Public safety will be protected. Local governments will have a softer cap on this type of spending, which will allow them to ensure that those needs are met in their respective communities. It puts a curb on local spending. Local spending is the crux of the problem. The state of Nebraska, as you all know, doesn't collect property taxes, which is why we must have hard caps on local property taxes. We must put a halt to local governments collecting a windfall of cash every time valuations go up. There is no reason to exceed the caps. If there is a reason, if there's a reason to exceed the caps, it goes to a vote of the people. That's the most local control you can possibly have, is a vote of the people. Finally, and this is important, this plan relies heavily on cutting spending at the state level and using that savings to bring relief to taxpayers. That is what we are already doing with our code agencies, and as a state, that will be our model of doing business going forward. How will we achieve this kind of property tax reform we're talking about? We have talked about these strategies: a hard cap on local spending, having the state take on a bigger burden of public school funding, and utilizing reductions realized at the state level. There are a few other components to funding the plan as well. For example, and this is a lot of confusion in this, so all the money we have set aside in the last 6 years for property tax relief, which has been significant, can now be retooled to help with this effort. As we know, all Nebraskans are not claiming this long-named property income tax credit for the property taxes paid. By retooling these programs, we'll make sure that relief gets to every property owner, whether they have an accountant or not. We must also generate new revenue to further right-size our three-legged stool. This will only happen by placing sales tax on currently exempt products. The plan removes over 110 current exemptions. This may increase the final price for consumers, but they have choices on what they buy and how much they pay for what they buy, and ultimately, therefore, what tax they pay. Today, when you get your property tax statement in the mail, you have no choice but to pay it in full on the date it's due, or you lose your home, or your farm, or your business. Importantly, and this has been agreed in both working groups and all through all our talks, food that you buy at a grocery store or at a quick shop, food, bread, butter, milk, eggs, meat will not be taxed, nor will medicine. Essentials, food and medicine, will not be taxed. The ultimate benefit of this plan, once fully implemented, Nebraska will collect $1 billion less in taxes. While some may try to convince you that this is a tax increase, this plan is a tax decrease. This is a fair plan which expands the base, brings some necessary controls to local spending, provides some vows that allow for spending as needed, calls on the state to take on a bigger portion of school spending. This is really important, as the governor said, and he said before, and we've said, we've got children all across Nebraska who are not getting their fair share as far as funding for public education. This will change that. We won't be picking and choosing winners and losers. So, with that, thank you very much.
I think maybe I just want to say again, thank you to the senators. Senators are here in the Warner chambers for everybody's work, everybody's commitment to solve the crisis and come together. I think it's really important, this is a plan that's been brought together by a whole lot of people. This is not my plan. This is Nebraska's plan. It's been done and brought in from people from all across the state of Nebraska, from the river out to Scottsbluff and Harrison. So I think that what I'm asking for today is to ask Nebraskans to be engaged in this process in the coming weeks. Make sure all Nebraskans' voice is heard. Our voice is what matters to our partners in the legislature. Your voice is what matters. If you don't get involved, other people's voice drowns it out. It's really important that the people of Nebraska's voice is heard on this. As we talk about broadening the sales tax, there'll be a lot of squealing going on. It's really, really important that we come away with a plan that quits quitting on kids and solves our property tax crisis. I think the other thing I wanted to make sure of is that our QR code on the plan book, that is live. We have not had the time to beta test that in all 93 counties. So if somebody goes to a county, goes and says this is off by a little bit, please help us. So we're working through that. We'll have it all baited tests. We should be in really good shape, that everything would be perfect by Monday, but you could find a couple things as we've not been able to do that. So I just want to, again, look forward to all of the work ahead. A special session is an opportunity for tax reform, for transformative changes, and making sure that we stop chasing seniors away because they can't afford to live in their house anymore, that we renew. Just think, we have 30 to 35% of our young people in the state have lost the hope that they can own their own home. And we sure as heck can't have any more calls about people wanting to come and do business here and they're buying property across the river. Are you kidding me? So I look forward. I have full confidence in our partners in the legislature that we'll come together with a plan that will be tax reform, transformative, and quitting on kids. So happy to take questions, and I'll ask Senator Clemens and Senator Linehan to help me out. Anybody? Martha. Yeah. Yeah, so the first step would be simply, we're running the state of Nebraska. We're running the government of the state like a business. We're decreasing spending and improving services. First step of the funding would be when we partnered with Senator Clemens as we took office. If you'll remember, back in the fall of 2022, there was bushel baskets and bushel baskets and bushel baskets of money. We had lots of state agencies that wanted 10 and 15% more money. Why? Because we had the money. We all do it. It's human nature. It's nobody's fault. It's human nature. We tend to spend our own money if we have a lot. We tend to do it in government. We said no to everything, presented a fiscally conservative budget that ended up being 2.5% growth with the unicameral, which allowed us to create the Education Future Fund to be able to start the $1,500 foundation aid. So that money will not be needed there, so that there'll be $160 million from the Education Future Fund. We've made progress at the state level in our 18 months of $200 million savings in running the state government, so we're leading the way at state, utilizing, and then some interest from non-bearing accounts. So that would be roughly $400 million. Obviously, the previous tax credits are also a part of the process. So in the end, we need to be able to broaden the sales tax and get it right in total $1 billion, and that is a list of all of the past exemptions, and those will all be conversations that the legislature will have, and stand firm on being able to go back to what Nebraska did, had a broadened sales tax base, and in the last 60 years, there's been 120 exemptions taken off. Where'd that money go? That went away and went onto the backs of the property taxpayers. So that's not a tax increase, that's putting sales taxes back in play that used to be a long time ago. All of them. Yep. So that, I think we're saying let's take a look at every exemption, and then that's going to be the work of the legislature to decide what will come into play. Everything's in play. Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, number one, I believe this. don't listen to what people say. Let's watch what we do. Property tax crisis is a crisis in the state. It's going to, if somebody's got a problem with this plan, let's get to the table and solve it. Anybody that pushes on the red button and not solving this problem is going to probably have a problem with Nebraskans. It's extraordinary responsibility to fix this. And number two, we have bipartisan support for this plan. So we'll have bipartisan support. We won't be scratching for 33 votes. We'll have bipartisan support. This plan, we're going to decrease property taxes 50%. We're going to decrease property taxes 50%. Take a look at what the plan does. Take a look at the delta of where our property taxes go. Anybody that says this is a tax increase needs to get into the details and understand the math of what's taking place. So this will be a bipartisan support, not a shadow of a doubt, and I have 100% confidence in the plans that there's a piece, hey, let's just use an example, popping candy. Popping candy is on the deal. And here's the thing. I'll ask a question for everybody in this room. You go to Quick Shop and buy a bottle of pop. Do you know what you pay for sales tax on it? Anybody? Of course you don't. You pay nothing. And oh, by the way, it's going to be hot today, and you decide that you need a can of pop. You need pop with ice, and you go to the soda fountain. Guess what? You pay sales tax on that. That's what you call a tax plan that makes no sense. This is fixing it, for crying out loud. This is fixing it. Yes. Yeah. Hey, just so you know, popping candy. When the Pillen boys grew up, if we got a pop, it was a heck of a day. And you know how many times we got a pop in a candy bar? It's not a food group, for crying out loud. Pop and candy is not a food group. Zach. Yeah. I think that today, through all the conversations, that the inputs are off the table, but having sales tax on, everybody agrees. Everybody's got to participate. And so I think that the conversation is not doing inputs, but that we go with taxing new equipment, new manufacturing equipment. And then obviously none of us believe in double taxation, so then personal property would come off of that. And and again, I'm okay. What the legislative body comes up with those solutions, I 100% support. I'm encouraging Nebraska senators to come together. We put out what with 19 of us have worked together with pretty good consensus and coming up with a plan that it has to be transformative. We have to have tax reform. Long term, we have to decrease our income tax more. What do you think's going on across the border? I mean, we have to lace our sneakers up and compete, and we have to fix our tax policy. We have to have tax reform, and we have to get it done now. We can't have a 10-year incremental plan. The game's over. States start shrinking. My job as governor is make sure we have a plan so we can grow the state of Nebraska, and we have to do it now. We don't do it now, the party's over and this place shrinks. I don't want to be any part of that. Andrew. Yeah. Yeah, I would, thank you, Bill. I think that, I'm a little reluctant talking about this because I haven't talked to Coach about it, but, the people have spoken. People have spoken. We've approved gambling, online sports betting. Online sports betting is real, and it's happening in the state. Whoever wants to do it is doing it, and we're giving all the revenue to our neighbors. I will put forth and be a priority bill in January to approve online sports betting. I-80 corridor, those are all the ideas that came about. The complexity of that has shelved that idea.
But I'm happy to speak.
Did you ask me that? Okay, yeah. Honestly, this plan enhances and helps the folks that are in most need of help. Number one, we didn't talk about it, but the previous tax credits, front loading. We're all in agreement on it. It was a great step, but the hardcore reality in 2023, there was $750 million of tax credits. $500 million was taken advantage of. And as I say, I'm governor of everybody in Nebraska. Of that $500 million, that made up about 55% of Nebraskans. 45% of Nebraskans did not take advantage of it because they don't hire an accountant, whatever the issues might be. So front load those, nobody pays the tax, number one. Number two, just for a history lesson, 1974, things changed. Does anybody remember what happened? Started opening stores on Sundays. Since that time, we've been duped that you can buy happiness. So if I have a child that's not making a lot of income, my advice is this gives you the opportunity to make decisions. This gives you the opportunity to decide what you need and what tax you're going to pay, and you can absolutely make things way better for you because you're not, you have the liberty to choose not having a tax. And the one thing, I'm a free market believer, but whatever we want to say and have the debate on what it'll do for renters, the thing we know is if we don't do something, renters' rent's going to keep going up. It's been going up like a rocket ship. Yes, sir. Yep. Yeah, well, I think again, everything is, that's in 50% average. I mean, there's going to be districts that have a 35-cent levy, and their tax savings is not going to be very great. But this is an average. So if you have a $1.05 levy, like most do, you're going to see a great savings. But it's going to be different each place. Go ahead, Senator Linehan.
Well, because I live in Elkhorn, so this is why it's so confusing for people, but in Elkhorn, we have a lot of SIDs, so if you live in an SID, you can have a different tax situation than if you're just in the city, and you're also going to have a different tax situation depending on, and this will affect Elkhorn and Gretna, where you've got a large bond issue. We are not building schools with state money. Those are bonds, and that's a vote of the people. So if you pass a bond, you're still going to be responsible for a bond that's on your property taxes. So I'm guessing, when I looked at mine in Elkhorn, it was more than 33%, but I'd have to look specifically at I'm assuming maybe there's a SID involved.
But it's a great question. Everybody's not going to have 50%. There's going to be places, some will have 65, 70%. No, we don't have it in the booklet. The goal of the booklet is real simple, to educate Nebraskans on the high points of the plan, have Nebraskans say this makes strategic conceptual sense, and please engage with your senators so your voice is heard instead of all the lobbying groups. I think that those detail for us to put a plan out, that the unicamerals, when the unicameral comes together, that's their job to put together and what the plan will be to be able to come up with the extra funding. Excuse me? Yes, I think that in regard to the sales tax items, those items, we'll leave that to the unicameral to make sure that they decide and come together. Obviously, I've put out and said all the exemptions are up from my seat. Go back and list all the exemptions. I support putting every one of them back on. But that's going to be up to the partners in the unicameral to decide that. Yes, sir. Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a couple things. One is we're talking about 100% state fulfill its constitutional obligation, quit quitting on kids, and fund K-12 education. Dramatically different. And this plan has a dramatic difference in property tax relief. Number one. Number two, this plan is really, really important that we stop spending money, that we start finally having courage to say no more. Local control is incredibly important to all of us in Nebraska, but we've proven, I don't know if everybody realizes it, it took me way too long to understand, but I mean, we have state statute in play today. Everybody's uptight about the valuations of your homes, right? We shouldn't be. We have state statute that says whatever valuations go up, our levy goes down accordingly, no change. State statute in play. Except there's a relief valve. Relief valve for every local government to override it, and we've been very, very good at that. We do it 100% of the time. So we have to have hard caps. So I'm a believer in this. If anybody wants to go back and check the facts, when the Obama administration took place, we went through a severe recession. Everybody remember that? Most of us in Nebraska don't, because from renewable fuels, our economy was thriving. We had lots of revenue. And so consequently, we grew government at 5% and 6%. During a time, 9 straight years of deflation. Deflation means we had deflation of 2 and 3%. So I'm an advocate, hard cap zero or CPI. What that means is when we go back and have 3% deflation, each government is zero. They're not asked to cut like we're doing at the state, but it's zero. If it's a hard cap 3, that means government grows 6%. Didn't we learn that? It's simple. So really, really important that we have policy that stands, policies that affect us, and that's why hard cap zero or CPI is really, really important. When communities, and there's growth component for communities, but when communities need more money for others, they take it to the vote of the people, not 3 or 6 people. Sure. Not a shadow of a doubt. Yes, sir. Yeah. There's, not all of us are going to agree, but I've talked to a number of people that are in the renting business, and the people that say no, that's not. They obviously don't have assets that they rent out. If you're going to not share, if anybody's been in that business, Do you want to have a good renter or a bad renter? If you have somebody that doesn't take care of your place, you can't charge enough for rent. The market will correct, and renters will win by property tax reform. Not a shadow of a doubt. That's the free market. That's how it works. Those of you that say that doesn't happen, well, the one thing we can agree, what we're doing now, rent will continue to keep going up. When we're at $1 million a day, it'll keep going up. It'll be going up $200 a month. It'll keep going up. This plan will solve the problem, not a shadow of a doubt. I believe in the free market. I believe in the American dream. Free markets work. That's why we're the greatest country in the history of civilization, for crying out loud. Yes, sir.
Philosophically, what does this mean for local control? I elect board members, I expect them to set my budget. Do I expect these folks to do what I would expect my neighbors to do?
Yeah, well, I think that the best answer that I can give you is local control. School board continues to be the most important elected official in the state, in my humble opinion. The difference simply is this just allows school board members and superintendents to focus on educating our kids. I've asked a lot of school board members, why did you run for school board? You know, I've yet to have anybody tell me, because I'm a TIOSA expert and I can really help my superintendent figure out how on earth to balance our budget and figure this out. So this plan, as I've met with superintendents yesterday, said I can't imagine what it's like to be a superintendent today, to try to navigate what we ask them to do. Conservative budget, and then all of a sudden wake up because of valuations. You have a whole different formula coming, of money coming from the TIOSA formula. That will get fixed and be addressed to be simplified. This is simply talking about funding. All the operational issues will get done in January in the next session, and it'll be a work in progress. But the bold plan, no, it's not bold. It's just fixing the solution.
It's
Senator.
looking for the regents and the community colleges.
Thank you, Senator. And I had the privilege to serve on the Board of Regents for 10 years. You know how much charge the Board of Regents has on funding? Zero. I think I did a great I worked my tail off to make sure that the funding that we receive from the state, that it was utilized correctly and done. That's the expectation of school boards. Same in community colleges. When we changed the funding to community colleges, same model, same backstops. Everybody that I talked to that ran for boards in community colleges, they didn't have any concept nor desire to be a taxing authority. They wanted to make a difference in running our community colleges so we have strong trade schools, trade programs, and make sure every kid gets an opportunity. Andrew. Yeah, no, that's not. So the plan will be exactly the way the funding goes now, and the commitment is no school. Number one, all schools' funding is in place for this school year. Nothing changes. And then in January, there'll be conversations in the unicameral about how do we make sure that we don't get calls from a superintendent that says, I've put forth a 1.5% growth plan, and now all of a sudden, because of valuations, I'm $11 million short from the state. We have to have a plan that is consistent funding. I have told superintendents I am committed. Every superintendent I've met across the state, I've asked this question. How many state statutes do you have that do nothing but raise the cost of educating our children and have no impact on their outcome? Guess what? Every superintendent says, we've got a lot. Well, I'm committed to helping clean the closets out there, to make sure we don't have to have all this administrative bloat, so we pay teachers more. Not cut that money, take that money and pay teachers more. Who can be against solving our problems so we can pay teachers more and have great outcomes for our kids? That's what this plan does. Yes, sir, Zach. Yeah. Yeah, that's a conversation that, again, we'll have in the proposal right now. And again, we learned this in transition when we had 40 people around the table. Everybody in the school industry says if we can rely on 3% growth every year, and that's what our commitment is. So nobody goes backwards, 3%. And just remember, more money and more people don't solve all the problems. What we have to do is we have to come together and make sure that we don't keep asking for more measurables to hire more people to keep track of stuff. Let's focus on educating our kids, and that's where superintendents, we all agree, let's clean the closets out. We don't have to have as much administrative bloat in school systems, and we can pay teachers more. That's where the money comes from. Yes, sir, Andrew. You know, if I was worried about making more money, I sure as hell wouldn't have become governor. Bill? I think that the plan will be that the session starts next Thursday. I think that's the 25th, next Thursday, and I think that the probability would be that the people beside me will introduce bills that have to do with the budget, from appropriations and then with revenue, and that's how all those details haven't been worked out, but that'd be the conceptual perspective at this time. We have lots of pieces, but there's, you know, I mean, I have full confidence in all the 49 members of the legislature to be able to critically think, ask questions, work through, compromise. You know, nobody's genuflecting at the altar. Are you kidding me? We're Nebraskans. I'm sorry, Andrew. I'm not understanding the question. I'm sorry.
When will you issue the proclamation?
I don't understand it.
So they want to know when. You're asking, I believe, when the governor will issue a proclamation for the special session. Is that the question? And how narrow will it be?
I can't answer that, Andrew. I'm sorry. No, not at all. I mean, honestly, it's a busy time of the year. Everybody's working nonstop. There's people on vacation. There's people everywhere, and you know, people have worked so hard. I wasn't going to encumber and ask other people to come. Yeah, of course. Again, we're going to have bipartisan support that's going to exceed 33 votes for this session. That's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yeah, who pays for the booklet? Pillen for governor pays for the booklet, and Pillen for governor will be doing whatever we decide's best to help Nebraskans understand the problem and get engaged to make sure their voices are heard. Kind of the same thing I've done from day one of running to become governor. Getting Nebraskans activated in this process so their voices are heard. All right, well, thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate it, and I appreciate you helping us get the message out to activate Nebraskans so their voices are heard in the democratic process. It's really, really important. Thank you. No, I think that's a simple conversation, and I'm not an attorney, and I'll sit down with my team and we'll assess that, but I'm not prepared to talk about that today. Thank you.